Small things shouldn't have the power to ruin your day, but somehow they do. A careless comment, a rude tone, a stupid mistake someone else made, and you're the one paying for it with your peace. The truth is simple. You're not angry because life is hard. You're angry because your mind reacts faster than your wisdom. Most people don't realize this. They think their frustration comes from the outside world. Other people, bad drivers, messy co-workers, disrespect. But anger is almost never about what happened. It's about how quickly we let our emotions hijack the moment before our clarity wakes up. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They believed that every irritation is a test, a chance to become stronger, calmer, and harder to shake. And today, you're going to learn 8 Stoic tools that will help you stop overreacting, protect your peace, and walk through chaos without losing yourself. Take a breath. Your calm starts now. 1. See the trigger before it hijacks you. You don't get angry out of nowhere. You get angry because something predictable just hit a nerve you never learned to see. Most people think anger arrives suddenly, like a storm dropping out of a clear sky. But anger doesn't work that way. It sends signals, it gives warnings. There is always a moment, tiny, almost invisible, where your body tightens, your breath shortens, or your stomach drops. That moment is the trigger, and if you don't learn to see it, it will own you. The Stoics believed that the real enemy is not the thing that upsets you, but the fact that you walk into it blindly. Every person has patterns, a tone that irritates you, a behavior that feels disrespectful, a type of incompetence that instantly makes your blood boil. These triggers repeat themselves. They follow you into conversations, workplaces, friendships, even the smallest daily interactions. Yet most people never stop to ask, why does this always set me off? Because noticing it would force them to confront something deeper about themselves. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Anger controls you most when you don't recognize the moment it begins. Think about the last time you snapped. If you rewind that moment, you'll see the trigger sitting right before the explosion. A sarcastic comment, a careless mistake, someone ignoring what you said. The trigger wasn't big, but your reaction was. Why? Because the reaction wasn't about the event, it was about your automatic pattern. A pattern that activates faster than your awareness. Stoicism teaches that mastery starts long before the emotion appears on your face. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about catching emotions at the beginning, when they are still soft and shapeable. That means recognizing the heat rising in your chest, the pressure behind your eyes, the urge to interrupt or snap back. When you see that early signal, something powerful happens. You shift from being controlled by the moment to being in control of it. Here's the real power. The trigger doesn't disappear, but its ability to hijack you does. Awareness is not about avoiding anger, it's about breaking the automatic chain between irritation and reaction. When you see the trigger, you create space, and in that space, you get to choose who you want to be, not who your emotions push you to be. So starting today, slow down just enough to notice. Notice the tension, notice the heat, notice the pattern, not to judge yourself, but to free yourself. Because the person who can see the trigger is no longer a prisoner of it. They are its master. 2. Don't fight the wrong enemy. You're not angry at what you think you're angry at. You're angry at the meaning you created inside your mind. Most people waste their energy fighting the surface of the problem instead of the real source. Something small happens. Someone forgets to reply. Someone makes a dumb mistake. Someone speaks to you in a careless tone, and instantly your mind declares war. But the Stoics understood that the outside event is never the true battlefield. The real conflict happens inside your interpretation. The story you tell yourself is what turns a tiny irritation into a full emotional hurricane. Here's the truth most people avoid. You're not angry at the event. You're angry at what that event makes you feel about yourself. When someone interrupts you, you don't get mad because of the interruption itself. You get mad because it triggers a deeper wound. They don't respect me. When someone is slow or incompetent, you don't explode because of the mistake. You explode because it whispers, "Now I have to fix everything again." When someone speaks rudely, it's not their tone that stabs you, it's the story. They think I'm not worth basic respect. Anger is rarely about the moment. It's about what the moment awakens inside you. Stoicism teaches one of the most liberating truths. If you can change the interpretation, you can change the emotion. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind has the power to strip every event of its harmful meaning. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means refusing to give your emotions authority they don't deserve. When someone behaves badly, you don't have to give their behavior a personal meaning. You can decide, this is about them, not me. You can choose not to bleed from wounds that never belonged to you. Here's the shift. The moment you stop personalizing everything is the moment you stop being controlled by everything. When you understand the real source of your anger, you take back your power. You begin to see how much of your frustration is actually self-created, fueled by assumptions, expectations, and invisible insecurities. And once you see it, you can break it. You can separate the event from the story. You can choose clarity instead of emotional chaos. So the next time something irritates you, ask yourself, what am I really angry at right now? Not the comment, not a mistake, not the behavior, but the meaning your mind rushed to attach. Because when you stop fighting the wrong enemy, you finally stop losing battles you never had to fight. 3. Stop making everything about you. Most of what upsets you has absolutely nothing to do with you. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, but the moment it sinks in, your life becomes instantly calmer. We tend to interpret every rude tone, every careless action, every thoughtless comment as a direct attack. It feels personal. It feels targeted. It feels like someone is intentionally trying to disrespect us or ruin our day. But the world doesn't revolve around us, and neither do people's bad behaviors. Most of them are simply acting from their own chaos, not ours. Here's the shift that saves you from unnecessary suffering. People behave according to who they are, not because of who you are. When someone snaps at you, it's usually because they're overwhelmed, insecure, or frustrated, not because you deserve it. When someone doesn't listen, it's because their mind is filled with noise, not because your voice lacks value. When someone acts in a foolish or inconsiderate way, it's because that's their pattern, not a calculated strike against you. But when you take everything personally, every small behavior becomes a wound. Every mistake becomes an insult. Every irritation becomes a threat to your dignity. Stoicism teaches that there is tremendous power in emotional neutrality. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that other people act from their own judgments, weaknesses, and blind spots. And those judgments have nothing to do with his worth. This perspective doesn't excuse their behavior. It protects you from letting it define you. The moment you stop personalizing nonsense, you stop giving nonsense the power to hurt you. And here's the part most people never realize. Taking things personally is a form of ego, not self-respect. It's the ego that wants to believe every action around you is about you. The ego that wants to assume significance, even in negativity. But self-respect is different. Self-respect says, I don't need to react to every stupidity around me. Self-respect says, your behavior is a reflection of you, not a measurement of me. When you let go of the idea that everything is aimed at you, you unlock a new emotional freedom. The world feels lighter. People's flaws feel less threatening. Annoyances stop penetrating so deeply. You begin to observe behavior instead of absorbing it. You shift from reacting to understanding, from taking offense to taking control. So the next time something irritates you, remind yourself, this isn't about me. Because when you stop making everything personal, you stop letting everything steal your peace. 4. Take the longer view. Shrink the moment. Small things feel big only when you're standing too close to them. Back up, and suddenly they shrink. One of the greatest sources of anger is zooming in too tightly on the moment. When you're locked inside a tiny frame, every annoyance looks enormous. A rude message feels like betrayal. A careless mistake feels like sabotage. A stupid comment feels like a personal threat. But the Stoics knew a secret. Almost nothing that angers you today will matter in the grand scale of your life. Anger grows in a small lens. Calm grows in a wide one. Here's the truth you forget when emotions are hot. Most things that bother you right now won't matter in 5 days, and definitely not in 5 years. Think about the last time you exploded over something small. At that moment, it felt huge. It felt urgent. It felt like the whole world was pressing its weight onto your chest. But then time passed. A few hours, a day, a week. And suddenly you realized how insignificant it truly was. The situation didn't change. Your perspective did. The problem was never the moment. The problem was how closely you stood to it. Stoicism invites you to step back, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to look at life from above, to imagine everything on a vast scale, the city, the nation, the planet, time stretching endlessly before and after him. When you adopt that higher view, annoyances lose their shape. Rage dissolves. Your mind becomes too spacious for small things to fill. Here's the power of the question: will this matter in 5 days? If the answer is no, then it's not worth your peace. If the answer is no, then it's not worth your energy. If the answer is no, then reacting only makes you smaller than the moment. When you zoom out, irritation becomes information, not fire. The driver cutting you off becomes a blip in your day, not a personal attack. The co-worker's incompetence becomes a mild inconvenience, not a catastrophe. The thoughtless comment becomes noise, not a wound. Perspective doesn't erase problems. It returns them to their true size. The moment you learn to shrink the moment, you stop letting small things steal big pieces of your life. Your calm grows. Your judgment sharpens. Your emotional gravity gets heavier, and fewer things are able to disturb it. So remember this every time anger rises. Step back. Zoom out. Look at the bigger frame. Because everything looks different when you stop letting the moment dominate your entire view. 5. Create space. The Stoic pause. Your greatest power isn't what you say, it's the moment you don't say anything at all. Most people lose control because they react faster than they can think. Their emotions hit the gas pedal before their mind even touches the wheel. That's why one careless moment can ruin hours or an entire day. But the Stoics discovered something simple and nearly supernatural. Between the trigger and the reaction, there is a tiny space. And if you take control of that space, you take control of yourself. Here's the truth people forget. A pause is not weakness, it's strategy. That 2 to 5 seconds of silence is where emotional mastery is born. When you stop for just a breath, your brain shifts from instinct to intention. You interrupt the automatic chain reaction, irritation, tension, explosion. You reclaim the ability to choose instead of being dragged by impulse. It's the difference between a response you're proud of and a reaction you regret for days. Think of a time you snapped too fast. You didn't pause. You didn't think so. You didn't evaluate. The anger took over the moment you opened your mouth, and what followed wasn't clarity, but damage. To yourself, to your peace, to someone you might actually care about. The Stoic pause is the antidote to that cycle. It slows down the emotional storm long enough for your wisdom to step in. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He believed that a person who reacts slowly reacts wisely. The pause allowed him to filter his first emotions, challenge his first assumptions, and choose a response rooted in values rather than ego. The modern world doesn't reward pausing. It rewards speed, outrage, instant reaction. But Stoicism teaches you to be different, to be deliberate, to be composed while others panic. Here's the shift you need to make. Not every feeling deserves an action. Not every irritation deserves a reaction. Not every moment deserves your fire. When you pause, you give yourself time to see the situation more clearly. Maybe the comment wasn't meant to offend you. Maybe the mistake wasn't personal. Maybe the tone was careless, not hostile. Or maybe the moment simply isn't worth your energy. The pause helps you sort truth from emotion. So next time your anger rises, do the one thing most people never do. Stop. Inhale slowly. Hold the moment before it holds you. That tiny space, that's where self-control begins. And the person who controls that space controls the whole moment. 6. Strengthen your boundaries before you break. You're not always angry because people cross the line. Sometimes you're angry because you never drew the line to begin with. Many of the frustrations that boil inside you don't come from major disrespect. They come from repeated, tiny violations you quietly allowed. You tolerate the interruptions, the laziness, the last-minute demands, the emotional dumping, the inconsiderate behaviors, until suddenly you explode over something small and you wonder why you overreacted. The truth is, you didn't overreact. You reacted to weeks, months, or even years of letting your boundaries crumble. Here's the truth you need to hear. People don't stress you out. Your lack of boundaries does. When you teach people that you're always available, they will believe you're always available. When you teach them that you're okay with absorbing their problems, they will endlessly unload them on you. When you teach them that you'll pick up the slack, they'll stop carrying their weight. And each time you say yes while your body screams no, resentment grows, anger builds, the pressure rises. Eventually, one tiny moment becomes the spark that ignites everything you buried. Stoicism teaches that protecting your peace is your responsibility, not the world's. Marcus Aurelius wrote that each person must guard their own mind like a fortress. Not with aggression, but with clarity. When you fail to set boundaries, you invite chaos into your internal world. When you set clear boundaries, you invite respect from others and from yourself. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that decide who gets access to your energy, your time, your emotional bandwidth. Here's the shift. If you don't choose your limits, someone else will choose them for you. Setting boundaries doesn't require drama or anger. It requires calm firmness. I can't do that right now. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. These short, steady sentences are acts of self-respect. They teach people how to treat you, and they teach you that your peace is worth protecting. The more you hold your boundaries, the less you'll find yourself exploding at small annoyances, because you're no longer carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations. The irony is powerful. When you protect your peace early, you never reach the point of breaking. So ask yourself, where am I allowing too much? Where am I giving more than I can sustain? Where am I silently building resentment? Draw the line, hold the line. Because the moment you strengthen your boundaries, your anger loses its favorite place to hide. 7. Lighten the moment. Use humor to diffuse. Anger. Anger shrinks when you stop treating every annoyance like a tragedy. Sometimes, you just need to laugh at how ridiculous the moment really is. Most people stay angry because they take every inconvenience too seriously. They magnify small problems into emotional disasters. They treat every stupid comment, every awkward mistake, every inconsiderate action as a sign that the universe is conspiring against them. But the Stoics knew something simple and profound. When you can smile at the absurdity of the moment, you rise above it. Humor isn't carelessness. It's emotional intelligence. It creates a psychological distance that anger cannot survive. Here's the truth. Once you can laugh, the moment loses its power over you. Think about how many times you stayed angry long after the situation ended. Hours later, you were still replaying the moment in your head, feeding the fire, convincing yourself how wrong or disrespectful the other person was. But imagine if, instead, you caught the absurdity of the situation in real time. Imagine noticing how silly someone looks when they take themselves too seriously. Imagine recognizing that the entire interaction is more comedy than catastrophe. That shift doesn't dismiss the problem. It frees you from drowning in it. Humor gives you emotional oxygen. It interrupts the intensity, lowers the stakes, and allows your mind to reset. When someone is acting foolish, one internal smile can protect you better than 1,000 arguments. When a situation feels chaotic, one moment of lightness can keep you from being sucked into the emotional storm. Even Marcus Aurelius used this method, reminding himself how often people acted out of ignorance, not malice, and how human foolishness is simply part of the world we live in. Here's what most people never understand. You don't laugh because it's funny. You laugh because it keeps you free. Humor doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're no longer hostage to the moment. It means you choose clarity over chaos. It means you refuse to let insignificant things contaminate your peace. When you smile internally, you regain control of your emotional temperature. You stop feeding the anger. You stop lowering yourself to the level of the moment. So the next time someone acts like a fool, pause and observe the scene as if you're watching a sitcom, not starring in a drama. Ask yourself, is this really worth tightening my chest over? Most of the time, the answer is no, and that realization alone will pull you out of the fire. Let the moment be light. Let yourself rise above it, because the person who can find humor in chaos is the person chaos cannot break. 8. Act from identity, not impulse. Stop reacting like the person you're trying to outgrow. Start responding like the person you're becoming. Most people let their anger speak before their character has a chance to show up. They respond from old wounds, old habits, old insecurities, not from strength, not from intention, not from the future self they're trying to build. And every time they explode, lash out, or snap back, they reinforce the identity they're trying so hard to leave behind. Growth isn't measured by how calm you feel, it's measured by who you choose to be at the exact moment you feel least calm. Here's the shift. Your impulse is who you were. Your response is who you are becoming. Think back to your past reactions. The times you said something you didn't mean, the times you let small things push you into big emotions, the times you replayed embarrassing moments in your head thinking, why did I act like that? None of that came from your higher self. That came from your survival self. The version of you who reacts fast, defends aggressively, and protects ego at all costs. Stoicism teaches that true power begins when you act from virtue, not emotion. When you respond from your principles, not your impulses. When you choose intention over instinct. Marcus Aurelius wrote that every moment is a vote for the kind of person you are. Even small moments. Especially small moments. That means every irritation is not just a test of patience. It's a test of identity. It asks a simple question. Are you going to be pulled back into who you were, or move forward into who you want to be? When you answer that question with your behavior, you reclaim your life from emotional autopilot. Here's the truth most people never accept. You're not supposed to match the energy of the moment. You're supposed to match the energy of your future self. Think of the strongest, calmest version of you. The one you've imagined, the one you admire, the one you're trying to grow into. How would that version respond? Would they argue with fools? Would they explode at minor inconveniences? Would they let small things drag them into emotional chaos? No. They would stay grounded. They would choose dignity over impulse. They would respond slowly, intentionally, and confidently. So when anger rises, don't ask, "What do I feel like doing right now?" Ask a better question. What would my strongest self do right now? And then do that, even if it's hard, even if it's uncomfortable, even if your emotions are begging you to do otherwise. Because every time you act from identity instead of impulse, you take one step closer to becoming the person you were meant to be. Act like your future self, and your future will meet you there. You've now seen the 8 Stoic tools that can change the way you move through the world. Seeing the trigger before it controls you, understanding the true source of your anger, refusing to take things personally, zooming out to shrink the moment, creating space with the Stoic pause, strengthening your boundaries, using humor to rise above chaos, and acting from identity instead of impulse. These aren't ideas, they're skills. And the more you practice them, the more unshakable you become. Here's the insight that ties it all together. When you stop reacting to small things, your life becomes bigger. Your peace expands. Your emotional world becomes clearer. You stop living at the mercy of every inconvenience, every flaw, every careless action around you. But transformation only happens when you apply what you've learned. So if you're ready to take back your mind, start today. Use one tool, even in one small moment. That's how strength is built. If this message helped you, like the video, comment, "I choose calm," and subscribe for more practical Stoic lessons to build a life you control, not a life controlled by your reactions.